Hello, I'm Christie Welch, Direct Marketing Specialist with the OSU South Centers, and welcome to another edition of Marketing Matters, where we have a special guest. Hallie Williams from Seneca County is going to be joining us to talk about food nutrition incentive programs. So stay tuned. Hello, I'm Christie Welch. Welcome again to another session of Marketing Matters with the OSU South Center's Direct Food and Agricultural Marketing Program. I am Christie Welch and will serve as your host today, and very excited to have with us Hallie Williams, who is the Ag and Natural Resources Educator in Seneca County. We want to learn about nutrition incentives, but we'd like to learn a little bit about you first. Can you give us a little bit of information?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm the Agricultural and Natural Resources Educator for Seneca County, Ohio with Extension. And so I am actually a fifth generation family farmer from Northwest Ohio. I flew the coop for college down at Oklahoma State University. I like to call it South Campus. It's the other OSU. But in my time down there, I got to manage the largest farmers market in Oklahoma and had a really cool opportunity to work with farmers markets, with vendors, and also bringing in nutrition incentive programs, SNAP benefits to this market. So this is kind of where I have a little intro into this very small world.
We're thrilled to have you back in Ohio. How long have you been back, and how long have you now been with the Ohio State University, the OSU?
Yeah. My husband and I moved back up to Ohio about 5 years ago, and I've been with Ohio State University in this role for about 3 years.
Great. Well, we're thrilled to have you. And of course, as you mentioned, having been able to manage the largest farmers market in Oklahoma must have been a real thrill and a real learning experience for you.
Absolutely. It was very cool. I had never even shopped at a farmer's market before taking that job. So I definitely dove in both feet, and it was a wonderful experience.
So again, Hallie, we're thrilled to have you here today to talk about nutrition incentives and should you be accepting them. So my first question to you, Hallie, is what's a nutrition incentive?
Yeah, so nutrition incentives, like you can see here, they're funds available for eligible individuals to encourage them to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. The ones that we're specifically talking about today are more so based around local foods, with being able to purchase those foods at farmers markets or local farm stands, something along those lines. Most of these are not going to be eligible to be used at a Walmart or a chain type store. But the goal of these is to improve overall health through better nutrition by consuming those fruits and vegetables. And then by that, some of these programs are providing matching dollars to use to purchase fresh produce. And then there's also matching funds for these that come from, they can be federal, state, local, or a non-government organization.
So can you just share a little bit, Hallie, about how the whole nutrition incentive got started, or a little bit of history about it?
Yeah, so originally, this was kind of an idea with farmers markets, and they were funding programs at the local level through sponsorships to start matching dollars that SNAP customers, this Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is the new terminology for food stamps, to match their dollars, to allow them to extend their dollars at farmers markets. And so I believe, I don't know how long that idea had been around, but then the Food and Nutrition Service, I believe, they had developed a grant in around 2014 called the Food Insecurity Nutrition Incentive Program. I called it the FENI, you called it FINI. I think everybody had a different terminology, but big picture, there's a lot of acronyms in the food incentive type world. And so these programs have developed a lot in the past 8 years or so, that now there's new funding, and it can still be anywhere from the local level all the way up to federal.
So that's a great point, Hallie. If I'm let's say a farmer's market,
Mm-hmm.
how do I get involved in accepting nutrition incentives?
Yeah, so your first step is probably to make sure that you're able to accept SNAP benefits. That's probably where you really want to get your feet wet first, especially if you don't have anybody on your board or staff who's never really worked with any of these types of programs before. Start accepting SNAP benefits first, because that's going to open up a whole new market for your farmers market. These are sales, for those who aren't familiar, SNAP benefits are issued on an EBT card, just like a credit card. They kind of use it like a debit card or whatnot. It's nothing too crazy, but you do have to have a special machine or special permissions to be able to run those cards. So your regular Square isn't going to be able to accept funds off of that type of card. So you need to get set up to accept SNAP first. And those are sales that, there's a lot of funds being used all throughout the country through SNAP. And so these are markets this is a type of payment that most farmers and farmers markets would not normally be able to accept without being set up on this first. So it's kind of a whole new market of customers to be able to start shopping your business.
That's also a good point, Hallie. That was going to be my next question is if I'm a direct marketing farmer and either I'm selling at farmers markets or I have my own farm market, why would I want to explore accepting these nutrition incentives?
Yeah. So first, it's an additional marketing revenue for you. It's a different area and different customer base to market your products to. But this is a population of individuals who want to be able to eat fresh, eat local, and it just hasn't been accessible to them before because of the limitations of actually just getting the equipment and for retailers to be able to take those funds. So by bringing that into your business, you open up a whole new market for your local community. There's all different types of people who are utilizing SNAP benefits for various reasons. There's actually very little fraud with SNAP benefits. So I hate the stereotypes that end up falling into that category because there's a lot of people who really just want to provide great, healthy, nutritious food to their family, and they haven't been able to do that locally before. So if you bring this into your market, your farm stand, this is just making you more accessible to the community. And those are funds that are federally issued to clientele. And then they get to shop your business. And that money is staying local. It's going to the local feed store. It's going to pay your employees. It's stimulating the local economy.
And I'm looking here, Hallie, at the numbers on the screen here, and I see nationwide from 2020 to 2021, the amount of funds issued went from about $74 billion up to almost $80 billion. I'm assuming that was due to the pandemic.
Yeah. So funds were issued even more so during the pandemic. And I've heard that funds are actually going to be increasing later this year too. Don't quote me on that, but those are funds that people are just turning and shopping at their local grocery store. And there's a lot of food deserts that are located all across the country that you wouldn't think exist, but because it's a low income community, and if there isn't transportation to local areas to buy those foods, then how are people supposed to be able to use those funds? They need to be able to find places to buy healthy local food or healthy food that is within their region, and they're not having to take 2 buses across town to go and get those foods. So it's definitely an opportunity for not just our consumers, but also our marketers.
And so we've talked about SNAP incentives. Is that the only incentive available, or are there others?
No, so there's multiples. So like we had said before, kind of the first step is being able to accept SNAP benefits. And with SNAP in general, customers can use those funds just how they would use at the grocery store. So basically anything edible is eligible, including plants that produce food. And that's one that everybody forgets about, but I really like, because I notice a lot of these customers, they're interested in growing their own foods. They're interested in starting a garden. And so individuals that, maybe if you have a greenhouse and you're selling tomato transplants, this is a market for you as well. And not just those who are selling tomatoes and sweet corn. So first off, there's that. But then there's multiple different types of incentives, and they vary and they differ based off of the organization that is providing those funds and providing those services. So yes, it would be a lot easier if it was all under one umbrella, but that'd be too easy. So Produce Perks and Produce Perks Midwest specifically is what kind of covers Ohio, but that's a nutrition incentive for SNAP customers. So for example, a SNAP customer could come to your farmer's market, withdraw funds off of their EBT card, their SNAP card, and then the market would match those funds up to a certain level. I think currently it's about $25. So the customer would withdraw $25 off their card, but they'd actually get $50 to go and spend throughout the market. Now, Produce Perks does have some more restrictions as compared to SNAP. Produce Perks is specifically for the purchase of fresh fruits and vegetables, where SNAP, you can buy meat, milk, eggs, cheese, those sort of things as well. It's not just produce, but this expands customers' buying power. In addition to that,
can almost double their food spending power. That's great.
Yes, absolutely. So Produce Perks is kind of the big one that a lot of SNAP customers are aware of, and it's more broad set across the state of Ohio, but longer, I guess maybe longer, more well-established incentive programs would be the WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program and the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Programs. So those are programs, WIC is actually issued through your local county health department or the region that you're in. And those are focused towards women, infant children, postpartum women, breastfeeding, pregnant women. They are eligible for funds if they fall into the correct income level. But they're really, really helpful for these families. Sometimes they are also on SNAP benefits, but this is another avenue. And these are actually going to be issued in a voucher. And you can, customers would receive those either at the WIC office, or possibly they are mailed directly to that customer, but then they would come to the market with paper voucher ready to shop with vendors. Those vouchers are able to be used for any local fresh fruits and vegetables. And a lot of participating farmers markets and farmers market vendors can accept these off their, at their booth or even at their farm stand. So these have been around for quite a while. Similarly is the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. It's run very much alike, but it's issued more towards low-income senior citizens, and that's federally and state-funded programs. Often that's managed within a region of Ohio. I know our market is dealing within a regional area office on aging that issues those funds. But you would have to get your market signed up to accept those funds, or yourself as a vendor could be signed up to accept those funds, and you just mail those back into the office and you get reimbursed. But again, fresh fruits, vegetables, you can also purchase herbs and honey with Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program vouchers.
When we think of food, well, milk, eggs, meat, that's all food too, but I didn't hear you include that in the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program or the WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so these programs are more restrictive. They're wanting to make sure that those funds are being spent on fresh fruits and vegetables more specifically, and they're more restrictive, but they're also, a lot of these customers are also issued SNAP benefits. So when you're accepting these funds at a market, you need to kind of be prepared to accept SNAP first and foremost, in addition to these other programs.
Fruit and vegetable prescription program. Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, so the prescription program, those are typically run by health healthcare organizations or non-governmental organizations. A lot of times they're kind of used within like a research project, trying to improve health of customers. And so basically, a customer could be issued a prescription to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, and that prescription is actually funding that. So it'd be issued like a voucher, I believe. Some other organizations run those a little bit different, but they may have a chronic health condition, and they're encouraged to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables at maybe the local farmers market or local farm stand. It kind of depends on how that organization runs that program, but it exists out there, and it's something kind of neat to think about. If that's a program that you're wanting to bring in, maybe you have a local hospital that's wanting to do some more work within the community and incentivize the community. This is a neat program to bring to their table.
Our local family and consumer sciences educator here in Pike County has worked with some healthcare organizations and have been offering the fruit and vegetable prescription program here in this county. So it's a really interesting program. As a producer, if I wanted to be able to accept any of those incentives that you mentioned, how would I go about that?
Some things you need to think about before going into this. One, we first off kind of encourage you to get signed up to accept SNAP benefits first, because that's the more universal program and will kind of introduce you into these other areas. But you need to make sure that you have the appropriate staff to manage the program. You're going to have a lot of record keeping, a lot of paperwork. You need to make sure that you can conduct a transaction with customers. A lot of times farmers markets, and I'm talking more generally as a farmers market standpoint as compared to a farm stand, but farm stands can accept some of these programs as well. But at farmers markets, we like to set up a manager table. At our market, we actually call it our market bank. And so we encourage customers to think of us like an ATM. They come to our table, we'll swipe their card, and we're actually going to use tokens to go forth and allow them to shop with it throughout the market. We can't make change for customers' transactions, so we just use a $1 token. They go forth and shop throughout the market. If they don't spend all their funds, they can bring them back to us. SNAP funds can be issued back onto their EBT card. Incentive funds can be hung on to until the next time that they shop, or they can be returned if they're not happy with the products offered. There's so many acronyms just in this presentation alone. There's a lot of different programs that have different restrictions. SNAP is anything edible. Produce Perks is just fruits and vegetables. Each has their own restrictions. So we need to make sure that we're communicating and we're educating not just our customers, but also our vendors. Our vendors are going to be able to help communicate with those customers. They'll feel so much more welcomed. I've seen some customers, they come to the vendor and they say, well, I have all these tokens, but I don't know how to use them. So it's important to make sure to have some resources for the customers, and then the vendors can help guide customers as they have those questions. We have signage that we hang all throughout the farmers market that shows which tokens can be used where, and so on and so forth. But you need to make sure that you have the ability to take really good records of how many tokens are dispersed, how many have been redeemed, how many are hanging out out in people's pockets from market to market. And you're going to need to report those transactions and overall redemption to your funders. So that may be grant funded. It may be to your local area office on aging. You need to make sure you can report those. And you have to make sure that there's integrity with this. We need to make sure that vendors who are selling poultry aren't accepting Produce Perks that's only be able to use for fruits and vegetables. We need to make sure that their vendors are accepting the right tokens for the right products that they sell.
Well, that's been some great information you've shared with us, Hallie, today. I know we've got a few minutes left here. I guess my question is, if I'm a direct marketer or a vendor at a farmer's market, you mentioned something about getting tokens redeemed. How do I get my funds for the products that customers purchase with those tokens? And how do I know what is an eligible item and what is not? It just seems like a lot to keep track of.
It is. You're absolutely right. So again, that's where we were talking about having really good communication and education with vendors. This year, the market that I work with in my home county, we just brought in these programs. So what we actually did is we made sure to do a training session, a Zoom, with all of our vendors. We had multiple opportunities so we could tell them what to expect, the different restrictions of the program, but then we also made sure to have a lot of different handouts and resources. So Produce Perks puts out a really great resource that shows which programs are eligible for which, or which products are eligible for which programs, excuse me. And so we modified that for our market, and we provide that to all of our vendors so that if they get any questions, they can always answer that. They keep one in their cash box. They have one laminated. They have signs outside their booth. And then at the end of the market, we actually provide our vendors a carbon copied invoice that allows them to write down how many tokens that they took in. They write that amount down, they put their tokens in their gallon-sized Ziploc bag and return those back to the market manager. They keep one of those carbon copies. So there's never a discrepancy. We can always see, okay, Joe said he took 5 tokens, but I only actually counted 4 tokens. So we can always have that good communication and understanding of what our balances are and what needs to be redeemed. And then we go forth and we collect all that data. We hang on to that on a vendor by vendor basis that we do not share with any other vendors or customers. It's only for in-house in the market. And then at the end of either the month or at the end of the market season, we make those payments back to the vendors through our local checking account. It's relatively very easy. We do make sure that we have the vendors sign a contract that just states that they know that they're only able to take these types of tokens or these types of vouchers. They give us our information on how to cut them checks and when the frequency in which they'd like to be paid. So there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be done, especially before a new vendor comes on and that training, but it's well worth it. And most of the time you don't run into too many hiccups after the vendors have been taking those for a market or two.
Again, Hallie, I appreciate you being here with us today. This is all great information, but it's kind of a lot to take in. So I guess where would either a farmer's market or a farmer go if they wanted to learn more about nutrition incentives and how to get started accepting those benefits?
Yeah, well, first off, we've got a great team here in Extension. We're a non-biased organization that we're here to just provide information and educate. But a lot of these programs are run by their own organization. So we can definitely help hold your hand as you're trying to pursue acceptance of these programs and get you connected with the right people. Any of us on this team, you can also contact your local county extension educator. If they don't know this information, they can definitely get you in contact with the right people to make sure that you can get the right resources and contacts with SNAP, FNS, Produce Perks, WIC, Senior Farmers Market, and if there's any possible produce prescription programs in your area.
Again, I appreciate you being here with us today, Hallie, to share this great information. As you can see, the contact information is on the screen for if you'd like to email Hallie. Williams.6386@osu.edu, and other folks that have worked on helping provide education and information about nutrition incentives. Thank you for joining us today. Hallie, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time on Marketing Matters with the OSU Direct Food and Agricultural Marketing.